You wake up, check your phone, get dressed, eat the same breakfast, go to the same job, smile at the same people, pretend to care about things that stopped mattering years ago. Deep down, you know something feels off, but you keep moving because motion is easier than meaning. Comfort is safer than confrontation. They've told you this is life, that stability is success, that repeating the same cycle over and over is proof you're doing it right. But if that's true, why do you feel so dead inside? What if the life you're clinging to isn't actually yours? What if it's a cleverly packaged illusion, sold to you since birth, shaped by people who never questioned it either? You call it normal, but it's really just familiar. You call it adulthood, but it's really quiet desperation. And you call it life, but it's survival, dressed in the costume of purpose. Here's a truth most people will never tell you. You are attached to things that are destroying you. A job you hate but won't leave. A relationship that drains you but feels safe. A city that suffocates you but pays your bills. Beliefs you no longer agree with but are too afraid to abandon. All of it, dead weight that you carry with pride, because to drop it would mean admitting you've been wrong for years. But what if being wrong is the beginning of waking up? There was a man who saw this sickness before anyone else. He predicted that humanity would trade truth for comfort, integrity for conformity, depth for distraction. He warned that we would become so attached to our illusions that we'd defend them with violence, that we would rather drown in the familiar than risk the unknown. He wasn't a prophet, he was just awake, and that made him dangerous. He said something terrifying, not because it was evil, but because it was true. Man would rather will nothingness than not will at all. In other words, we would rather destroy ourselves than admit that everything we're holding on to is meaningless. You've been taught to fear chaos, but maybe chaos is the only honest thing left. Maybe what you call life is just a well-decorated cage, and the only way out is to burn it down. This isn't about rebellion. This is about reclamation, the reclaiming of your own mind, your own time, your own soul. But that journey begins with one brutal realization. Friedrich Nietzsche was not trying to be liked. He wasn't interested in praise, acceptance, or even agreement. He knew that truth, real truth, does not comfort. It confronts, it stings, it wounds before it heals. And that made him dangerous in a world addicted to lies. Nietzsche looked at modern society, the way people behaved, believed, obeyed, and saw a sickness hiding in plain sight, a moral disease that no one questioned because everyone had been born into it. It was called goodness, virtue, morality. But Nietzsche saw it for what it truly was, a carefully engineered lie designed to protect the weak and punish the strong. What most people call morality, he called slave morality, a value system invented not by noble people seeking truth, but by resentful people seeking power. It flipped strength into sin, turned confidence into arrogance, and made obedience into a virtue. It didn't teach people to rise above. It taught them to shrink, to bow, to blend in, to call weakness humility and envy justice. Nietzsche saw that modern man was no longer guided by truth or instinct, but by the approval of the herd, the collective. And to survive within that herd, one had to betray their own instincts. If you were too bold, you were arrogant, too curious, and you were dangerous, too self-loving, and you were selfish. Slowly, generation by generation, the herd convinced itself that smallness was sainthood. And this wasn't just a moral problem. It was a psychological prison. People didn't follow slave values because they agreed with them. They followed them because questioning them felt like social suicide. And in a world that fears exile more than death, people would rather be fake than be alone. You can see this everywhere. In classrooms where creativity is punished, in workplaces where conformity is rewarded, in relationships where silence is safety. Society has no room for the individual who thinks for themselves. They must be corrected, disciplined, or canceled. Nietzsche knew that the real danger wasn't evil. It was mediocrity masquerading as morality, a world where no one sins, but no one truly lives either. A world where people work jobs they hate, marry people they don't love, and die having never asked why. All because it's what good people do. And in that kind of world, to choose your own path, to think, speak, live without asking permission, isn't just rare, it's heresy. Nietzsche didn't hate morality. He hated moral systems that made people smaller, quieter, tamer. He wanted values that made people more alive, not more obedient. He believed morality should be something you created, not something you inherited. But to do that, you'd have to step outside the herd. You'd have to stop pretending. You'd have to risk being misunderstood. And that's terrifying, because once you stop living for approval, you're finally left with yourself. And most people don't know who that is. People don't cling to things because they love them. They cling because they're afraid of what comes next if they let go. It's not the job you love. It's the predictability. It's not the relationship you believe in. It's the fear of loneliness. It's not even your beliefs that you protect. It's the comfort of never having to question them. This is the trap. You start with attachment, a habit, a place, a person, an ideology. It begins as something external, but over time, it fuses with your identity. And now, you're not holding it. It's holding you. Psychologists call this ego identification. When the mind fuses your sense of self with external objects or roles, you don't just have a job, you are that job. You don't just believe something, you are that belief. And when something threatens it, you don't feel challenged, you feel attacked. Nietzsche understood this deeply, even before psychology gave it a name. He saw how human beings mistake comfort for meaning. We confuse repetition with truth, and over time, the illusion of safety becomes more important than the pursuit of truth. This is why people fight to stay in situations that slowly destroy them. The abusive relationship, the dead-end career, the suffocating routine. These things are painful, but they're known. And in the mind of someone trained to fear the unknown, familiarity becomes sacred. Letting go doesn't just mean losing something. It means facing a terrifying question. Who am I without this? We are creatures terrified of the void, so we fill it with noise, labels, schedules, opinions, distractions, anything but silence, anything but stillness, because in the stillness, we might hear a question that shakes us. What if nothing I've attached myself to is really me? This is where Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence becomes relevant. He asked, if you had to live this exact life, exactly as it is, over and over for eternity, would you say yes? Would you be proud of your attachments, or would they feel like chains? Because if you wouldn't say yes to living this life again and again, then why are you living it even once? The truth is, most people are loyal to things they no longer believe in. They defend the cage because they're afraid of the wilderness. But real freedom begins the moment you stop asking, what will happen if I lose this? And start asking, what's waiting for me beyond it? You're not afraid of letting go. You're afraid of who you'll be once everything falls away. But that's not. We live in an age where everything is faster, louder, and more connected, yet never has meaning felt so hollow. People don't know what they believe anymore, not because they're lost, but because they're drowning in noise. Algorithms shape their opinions. Ads shape their desires. Popularity shapes their morality. And all of it happens so subtly that they think they're still thinking for themselves. But Nietzsche saw this coming. He didn't just criticize individuals. He exposed the machinery. He warned that when a culture abandons its roots, not religious, but existential, it doesn't evolve. It fragments. People no longer live by truth, but by trends, by appearances, by the illusion of meaning pumped through screens and sold back to them as freedom. In the absence of deep values, we didn't become wiser. We became consumers. Our values were outsourced to the market. Our worth measured by productivity. Our purpose reduced to performance. And when meaning becomes a product, it's not meant to nourish. It's meant to keep you hungry. Look at how we live. We work more, but feel emptier. We communicate more, but say less. We present ourselves endlessly and still feel unseen. We perform success while quietly decaying inside. This is not just exhaustion. It's existential fatigue, a spiritual malnutrition hidden behind constant stimulation. Every app, every ad, every platform screams, look at this, want this, become this. But none of it asks you to think. None of it asks you to feel. None of it dares to ask what actually matters. And that's not accidental. It's intentional. A distracted person doesn't rebel. A busy person doesn't reflect. A numb person doesn't ask dangerous questions. They just keep scrolling, keep consuming, keep surviving. Nietzsche's warning wasn't about some apocalypse in the future. It was about this, the quiet death of depth, the replacement of inner life with outer noise, the slow erasure of individuality beneath a tidal wave of shallow imitation. In a world where everything is allowed, but nothing is sacred, people lose the ability to care deeply, to commit, to stand still, to ask, is this mine, or was this sold to me? This isn't about going backwards. It's about remembering what forward even means, because real progress isn't faster technology. It's deeper consciousness, and until we reclaim the ability to create meaning, not borrow it, we will keep calling distraction freedom and emptiness life. You've just been trained not to notice the chains. They don't whip you, they reward you. They don't imprison your body, they consume your time, your mind, your energy. Modern slavery doesn't look like cages and masters. It looks like ambition. It looks like professionalism. It looks like endless productivity. We tell ourselves that we're chasing success, chasing goals, chasing a future. But the truth is, most people are simply running from silence, from stillness, from meaning. The modern world replaced external control with internalized pressure, and that's the most efficient prison ever built, the one where the prisoner becomes the warden. Nietzsche predicted this decay. He saw that when societies lose their higher values, not religious ones, but existential ones, they will manufacture substitutes: progress, productivity, reputation, self-optimization. Buzzwords that give the illusion of direction, but mask the absence of depth. He called this the rise of the last man, someone who doesn't dream of greatness, but only craves comfort, security, entertainment. And look around. This is exactly what we've become. You're told to work harder, but not to ask why. You're told to grow your brand, but never your character. You're told to look busy, but never to look inward. You measure your day by output, your value by engagement, your identity by visibility. It doesn't matter how you feel. It matters how you appear. And as long as the illusion is polished, the rot beneath can be ignored. Social media didn't invent this. It just perfected it. It taught people to curate their lives like advertisements, to package their personalities into marketable fragments, to turn their faces into brands and their thoughts into content, and then to keep producing every day or disappear. This isn't self-expression. It's self-erasure dressed in performance. Nietzsche warned of this inversion, where image becomes more important than being, where comfort replaces courage, where life becomes something you simulate, not something you live. And the saddest part? We celebrate it. We call it success. People burn out, and we call them weak. They question the system, and we call them negative. They long for stillness, and we call them lazy. But behind the smiling selfies and motivational quotes, a silent despair grows, because no matter how much you produce or post or perform, you cannot fake meaning. You can't manufacture depth. You can't scroll your way into purpose. And until we admit that this system is not designed to nourish the soul, only to extract from it, we will keep calling exhaustion, drive, and spiritual decay the hustle. This isn't freedom. It's slavery with better branding. The modern world has trained you to be harmless, to smile when you want to scream, to nod when you want to disagree, to suppress when you should express, because politeness is rewarded, rebellion is punished, and somewhere along the line, you were taught that to be good means to be quiet, agreeable, small. But Nietzsche didn't believe in this version of goodness. He didn't want people to be obedient. He wanted them to be dangerous, not in the sense of violence or chaos, but in the sense of power, integrity, unshakable selfhood, the kind of danger that comes from someone who knows who they are and doesn't need your permission to exist. In psychology, Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself that you've exiled in order to survive. Your rage, your lust, your ambition, your madness, your instinct, all the energies that don't fit the role you've been assigned by society, by family, by culture. You pushed them down, labeled them wrong, and forgot they existed, but they didn't disappear. They just went underground, and now they haunt you. Nietzsche believed that true transformation begins when you stop pretending, when you stop trying to be good and start trying to be whole. That means confronting the shadow, facing the ugliness within you without flinching. It's not a comfortable process. It's not marketable. There are no shortcuts. But without it, you're just a performance, a mask. Society fears the individual who integrates their darkness because that person can't be controlled. They can't be manipulated through guilt, shame, or fear. They don't need validation. They don't need applause. They are self-authored. And that is the most threatening thing in a world built on obedience. This is what Nietzsche meant when he spoke of the Übermensch, not a superior being, but a self-overcoming one, a person who has looked into the abyss and chosen to build something real from it, someone who doesn't copy values, but creates them, someone who isn't nice, but true. And that kind of person is dangerous because they remind others of everything they've abandoned. If you want to be free, you must stop outsourcing your soul. You must reclaim the parts of yourself you were told to hide. You must stop asking for permission to be real. This isn't about ego. It's about power, the sacred kind. The kind that comes from owning every part of yourself, even the parts that scare you, because the world doesn't need more obedient people. It needs people who have gone into the dark, faced what's there, and come back alive. So now you see it, not all at once, not like some grand awakening, but in fragments, in feelings you can't unfeel, in truths that whisper through the cracks of your so-called life. You're attached to things that drain you, identities that aren't real, systems that don't serve you, beliefs you didn't choose, and you call it life because everyone else does too. But Nietzsche didn't. He called it sleepwalking. He called it herd mentality. He called it the death of the spirit. And maybe he was ignored, not because he was wrong, but because he was right too early. This journey we've taken isn't about hating the world. It's about seeing it clearly. It's about recognizing the traps you were born into, the masks you were taught to wear, and the quiet surrender that most people mistake for maturity. You don't have to burn it all down, but you do have to stop lying to yourself. Stop calling exhaustion purpose. Stop calling fear wisdom. Stop calling survival meaning. Start asking better questions. What do I truly value? What have I accepted without ever examining? What would I choose if no one was watching? Because that's where life begins. Not where it's loud, but where it's honest. Not where it's easy, but where it's yours. Nietzsche didn't leave us with answers. He left us with fire, a challenge, a mirror. He didn't want followers. He wanted creators, people brave enough to sculpt their own lives with their own hands. So if you take nothing else from this, take this. Live as if you meant it. Because in a world built to keep you asleep, the most rebellious thing you can do is to wake up.